Hey everyone, my name is Josh and welcome back to your fourth stimulus package and news update. We have a lot of news to get into in today's video, but first, if you would like to receive 1 free stock from Robinhood just by opening an account and 2 free stocks from Webull, make sure to go ahead and claim them by clicking my links, which you will find in the description box below. Okay, so with tensions continuing to rise over in Ukraine, a lot of the current legislation Democrats are trying to push through has been pushed to the side. Regardless, 5 Senate Democrats sent a letter to President Biden urging him to renew the monthly child tax credit payments. Since the expanded child tax credit has been in danger of being dropped from the Build Back Better bill, many Democrats are pushing for it to stick around. In the letter, they wrote, "The expanded child tax credit is a signature domestic policy achievement of this administration and has been an overwhelming success. We are deeply grateful for your leadership on the historic child tax credit expansion, and we stand ready to work with you to extend this critical investment in American families and children as part of the Build Back Better package." The letter went on to say, "This policy is not only transformative but popular. Support for the expanded child tax credit has averaged nearly 60% since the first round of payments, and support for making the program permanent among recipients has averaged 73% since July. The consequences of failing to extend the child tax credit expansion are dire, particularly as families face another wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Without the expanded credit, nearly 10 million children will be thrown back into or deeper into poverty this winter, increasing the monthly child poverty rate from roughly 12% to at least 17%. After historic progress, it is unacceptable to return to a status quo in which children are America's poorest residents and child poverty costs our nation more than $1 trillion per year. Raising taxes on working families is the last thing we should do during a pandemic." Of course, whether or not this ends up being included in the bill will be completely up to Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. Certainly, as we have learned over the past couple of months, Joe Manchin isn't backing down from his overall price tag, and if anything, with all the bad news of recent inflation, empty shelves at the store, and now the geopolitical crisis, it seems like this bill is the least of his concerns. Also, from recent reports, it seems like Senator Manchin is still pretty upset with the White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain due to how he called out Manchin for opposing the social spending plan. According to the Washington Post, Manchin has also told allies that he believes Klain has pushed Biden to embrace a more liberal policy agenda, adding that Klain must repair the relationship with him if the Chief of Staff is to be involved in future negotiations. On top of that, due to Manchin's opposition to the bill and other agendas such as ridding the filibuster, far-left liberals such as Bernie Sanders have threatened to have him primaried. To that, Manchin said that Senator Sanders is not actually a Democrat, but rather he's a self-described Democratic socialist. Manchin went on to say that Sanders' ideology is not what he thinks the majority of Americans represent. So of course, Manchin has no real concerns of Sanders backing another Democrat in the West Virginia primaries, especially in a state like West Virginia where Donald Trump won 69% of the vote. Yeah, pretty sure the residents in West Virginia much more prefer someone like Joe Manchin rather than Bernie Sanders. In a state like California or New York, it would be different, but again, this is West Virginia. Okay, so of course, with Biden's rough few months where his popularity ratings continue to dip more and more, even among Democratic voters, frustrations only continue to build. On Monday, when fielding questions about inflation and how that could impact the midterm elections, he was caught on the hot mic calling the reporter a stupid SOB. Watch.
Why are you sending 8,500 troops to Ukraine, possibly?
Thank you, guys.
Will you take questions on inflation then?
Let's move. Thank you. Thank you
Do you
all.
think inflation is a political liability?
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
President Biden also took some time yesterday to address the possible consequences of Russia if they were to invade Ukraine.
You guys have any questions? I know you never have questions.
I know. Do you mind, this morning you had Cuba spent a lot of time with your national security team at the White House. Are there any updates on Ukraine, Mr. President?
No updates except that there's been no change in the posture of the Russian forces. There have, and now they're, as you know, they're along the entire Belarus border. And I made it clear to early on to President Putin that if he were to move into Ukraine, that there'd be severe consequences, including significant economic sanctions, as well as I'd feel obliged to beef up our presence, NATO's presence on the Eastern Front, Poland, Romania, etc. And but I see, I was watching one of you on television pointing out the fact that, and I think you got it right, whoever it was, I'm embarrassed, I don't remember who, saying that this is all Putin. I don't think even his people know for certain what he's going to do.
Would you ever see yourself personally sanctioning him if he did invade Ukraine?
Yes,
You would?
I would see that.
What would it take to trigger the deployment of the 8,500 troops that you've put on high alert? And what's your message to those forces that are on high alert?
Those forces in high alert they're part of a NATO operation, not a sole U.S. operation, and I've made it clear to President Putin that we have a sacred obligation, Article 5 obligation to our NATO allies, and that if in fact he continued the buildup and/or was to move, we would be reinforcing those troops. And I've spoken with every one of our NATO allies in person, not person, virtually, and we're all on the same page. We've got to make it clear that that there's no reason for anyone, any member of NATO, to worry whether or not NATO would come to their defense.
And Mr. President, what about? May I ask you about when you'll make a decision about deploying those troops? What will lead to that?
What would lead to that is what's going to happen, what Putin does or doesn't do. And I may be moving some of those troops in the nearer term, just because it takes time. And again, it's not provocative. It's just exactly what I said. Is that as long as we have to reassure, if you notice, you don't see a lot of concern in terms of their security of our NATO allies in Western Europe, but in Eastern Europe there's reason for concern. They're along the Russian border, they're the Belarus border, so everyone from Poland on has reason to be concerned about what would happen and what spillover effects could occur. We have no intention of putting American forces, our NATO forces, in Ukraine. But as I said, there are going to be serious economic consequences if he moves.
Can you tell me whether you think, sir, that the risk of an invasion is increasing or decreasing or steady just as it has been these recent days?
You know, I'll be completely honest with you. It's a little bit like reading tea leaves. Ordinarily, if we're a different leader, the fact that he continues to build forces along Ukraine's border from Belarus all the way around, you'd say, well, that means that he is looking like he's going to do something. But then you look at what his past behavior is and what everyone is saying, and his team, as well as everyone else, as to what is likely to happen. It all comes down to his decision. Look, let me conclude by saying there will be enormous consequences if he were to go in and invade, as he could, the entire country, or a lot less than that as well, for Russia, not only in terms of economic consequences and political consequences, but it'll be enormous consequences worldwide. This would be the largest, if he were to move in with all those forces, it would be the largest invasion since World War II. It would change the world.
Thank you, guys.
In some other news, I'm sure it'll bring many people great joy to learn that Nancy Pelosi is going to run for yet another term in Congress.
Hello, it's Nancy. Thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you, our VIPs, our volunteers in politics, in our ongoing engagement for the people. Thank you for being a constant source of new, fresh ideas and political activism to help Democrats deliver and to defend democracy. Thank you for giving me the privilege to represent our city and our San Francisco values in the Congress: human rights, reproductive justice, LGBTQ equality, respect for immigrants, and care for each other. When people ask me what are the 3 most important issues facing the Congress, I always say the same thing: our children, our children, our children. their health, their education, the housing and economic security of their families, a clean, safe environment in which they can thrive, and a world at peace and where they are all welcome and in which they can reach their fulfillment. That is my why I am in Congress, for the children. This is my story, and this is my song. As you hear me say, when you're in the arena, you have to be able to take a punch or throw a punch for the children. In terms of health, my first words on the floor of the House were to fight against HIV/AIDS, to fight the disease and discrimination. Working together, we passed the Affordable Care Act, strengthening Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, lowered prescription drug prices, and now are fighting COVID with equity. In San Francisco, the climate is not an issue, it is an ethic. Education, the economy, and the environment are all part of how we address the climate crisis, creating good-paying green union jobs, affordable housing, clean energy, infrastructure, transportation justice, and education, educating the next generation to succeed in safe schools with 21st century skills. Our safe communities require gun violence prevention, addressing the root causes of crime, and supporting law enforcement with justice in policing. Our vision for a world at peace requires a strong democracy at home as an example to the world. We are grateful to our men and women in uniform, veterans and military families, and honor their sacrifice with our insistence on securing voting rights, an end to big, dark money in politics, and amplifying the voice of the grassroots. While we've made progress, much more needs to be done to improve people's lives. Our democracy is at risk because of assaults on the truth, the assault on the U.S. Capitol, and the state-by-state assault on voting rights. This election is crucial. Nothing less is at stake than our democracy. But as we say, we don't agonize, we organize. And that is why I am running for re-election to Congress and respectfully seek your support. I would be greatly honored by it and grateful for it. Thank you so much.
At least for us investors, we can continue copying her expertise in trading stocks. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. Again, if you would like to receive 1 free stock from Robinhood or 2 free stocks from Webull, make sure to quickly claim them by clicking my links, which you will find in the description box below. So once again, I do hope that everyone has a great and safe rest of their day. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.